Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, for 1 year as we read through St. Faustina's diary. Join me, Amy Thomas, each day for a short reading out of the diary which brought us a deeper understanding of Christ's divine mercy. Welcome, Catholic pilgrims, to day 98 of our readings from St. Faustina's diary. So today it's going to look like we're not reading very much because it's only 2 numbers, but it's a little bit longer readings, not too long, but just each number has a little bit more than sometimes is usual. So that's why it's only going to be 2 numbers today. So we're going to get started. It's going to be Notebook 1, as always, until we switch to Notebook 2. I'm waiting for that day. But Notebook 1, numbers 411 through 412. March 21st, 1935. Often during Mass, I see the Lord in my soul. I feel His presence which pervades my being. I sense His divine gaze. I have long talks with Him without saying a word. I know what His divine heart desires, and I always do what will please Him the most. I love Him to distraction, and I feel that I am being loved by God. At those times, when I meet with God deep within myself, I feel so happy that I do not know how to express it. Such moments are short, for the soul could not bear it for long, as separation from the body would be inevitable. Though these moments are very short, their power, however, which is transmitted to the soul, remains with it for a very long time. Without the least effort, I experience the profound recollection which then envelops me, and it does not diminish even if I talk with people, nor does it interfere with the performance of my duties. I feel the constant presence of God without any effort of my soul. I know that I am united with Him as closely as a drop of water is united with the bottomless ocean. Last Thursday, toward the end of my prayers, I felt this grace, and it lasted for an unusually long time, for it was throughout Mass, so that I thought I would die of joy. At such times, my knowledge of God and His attributes becomes more acute, and also I know my own self and my misery much better. I am amazed at the Lord's great condescension to such a miserable soul as mine. After Holy Mass, I felt completely immersed in God and am still conscious of His every glance into the depth of my heart. About midday, I entered the chapel for a moment, and again the power of grace struck my heart. As I continued in a state of recollection, Satan took a flower pot and angrily hurled it to the ground with all his might. I saw all his rage and his jealousy. There was no one in the chapel, so I got up, picked up the pieces of the flower pot, repotted the flower, and tried to do all this before anyone came in. But I did not manage to do so, as Mother Superior Borgia came in at that moment together with the Sister Sacristan and several other sisters. Mother Superior was surprised that I had been touching something on the altar and thus caused the flower pot to fall. Sister Sacristan showed her displeasure, and I did my best not to explain or excuse myself. But towards evening, I felt very exhausted and could not make my holy hour, so I asked Mother Superior to allow me to go to bed early. I fell asleep as soon as I lay down, but at about 11 o'clock, Satan shook my bed. I woke instantly, and I started to pray peacefully to my guardian angel. Then I saw the souls who were doing penance in purgatory. They appeared like shadows, and among them I saw many demons. One of these tried to vex me. Taking the form of a cat, he kept throwing himself onto my bed and on my feet, and he was quite heavy, as if weighing a ton. I kept praying the rosary all the while, and toward dawn these beings vanished, and I was able to get some sleep. When I entered the chapel in the morning, I heard a voice in my soul. "You are united to me. Fear nothing. But know, my child, that Satan hates you. He hates every soul, but he burns with a particular hatred for you because you have snatched so many souls from his dominion." One of the things that I struggle with as a blogger and a writer is thinking that I'm just not doing very much. And I will, sometimes I'll write something and it won't get a lot of views or it won't get a lot of comments, and it'll be a piece that I will have just poured my heart into, and I will think to myself, oh man, this one's going to be really good, pride. But I'll just think it's something that's really going to grab everybody's attention and maybe really move them. And then it turns out to be an utter dud. And I'm so surprised. My husband and I have pondered over this so many times. Pieces that I don't think will do very well, and ones that I think are going to do well, don't. It's bizarre and it's hard to figure that out as a blogger and a writer. But what's interesting is the play that goes on in my head. So I will feel like I'm just not doing very much. And all these doubts will come into my head. Like, you should really just stop doing this. You've got other things you can be doing. It's not really making a difference. And then someone will say to me, if it saves only one soul, then it's worth it. And I'm, yeah, I agree with that. But then there's a part of me that's like, yeah, but that just doesn't seem like enough. And there's this total tug of war that goes on in my head. And I know that it's Satan talking to me. He's trying to put doubts into my head because, in all honesty, if I do reach just one person and snatch that person's soul from his dominion, like, Jesus says at the end, then everything I say is worth it. And it's hard for us as prideful human beings to realize and recognize that, but it's the truth. Satan wants us to think that unless it's super huge and big, we're not doing anything. It's not worth it. But that's just not true. And that's what he wants you to think, so that you'll stop. And so it's a constant battle in my head to realize that, maybe one person reads my blog, but if that person is very affected, then it's worth writing it, right? Oftentimes the ones that do very, very well, it can make my pride shoot through the roof. And then I think I'm just all that in a bag of chips. And that's not so good for me either. So a lot of times I think, certain blogs don't do as well as I think because God is keeping me humble and keeping me seeking his will and making sure that I'm doing this to save souls and not for my own popularity, I guess I would say. And so we see today that the closer you get to God, the harder Satan will try. Like I've said before, those that are gone and sunk in mortal sin, Satan doesn't have to try that hard anymore. Now, if he sees that they might be coming around and want to go to confession and change their lives, then he's going to jump on board and get to working. But if they're sunk in mortal sin, he doesn't really need to do anything. But those who are getting closer and closer to God, he's going to try very hard, especially if you're trying to lead other souls to Christ. I'm not saying that I'm a saint or a prophet or anything like that, but and Satan does not come and turn into a demon cat on my bed and vex me in that way like it does with Sister Faustina. She obviously has real tangible things that are going on with the throwing of the flower pot, and she definitely sees demons and things like that. I don't have that, thankfully, but we know that saints do. We know that they do, but sometimes how Satan tries is the doubts in our minds. And that's where he plays on our fears and on our ego and things like that. And so it's not always these very vivid actual encounters like Sister Faustina has, but it can just be, more like the words in our head that cause us to maybe want to shrink away from our duties that God has placed before us and doubt what we're doing. And that's my experience. And so what do we do if this happens? Well, Sister Faustina gives us a great recipe, right? She stays calm. She prays to her guardian angel calmly. And she doesn't get hysterical about it. She's just calm about it, which I feel like I would be hysterical if I was having the kinds of visions and experiences that she has. But that's what we need to do. We need to pray to our guardian angel. We ask St. Michael to defend and protect us and not get hysterical about it and just be calm. Now, if the voices are in our heads and we're doubting ourselves, like for me, I think the best thing to do is, again, pray to your guardian angel. Give me the courage and the strength to keep going, even if I'm not getting the big numbers. Again, that's my pride. I need to say maybe a prayer of humility and walk myself back down from my high horse. But we need not let it terrify us, I guess. We have all the helps that we need. But the biggest thing is just to remember also, like Christ says, we are united to him. Fear nothing. Know that Satan is going to come after us, but God gives us all the helps that we need. He's not going to abandon us to him and to the doubts that he puts into our mind. We just have to use the helps that are there. Remember that we are a child of God. We have an angel army that is on our side. We have our Mother Mary, who will always intercede for us. And we have, our union with Christ. And all those things will keep us protected. And just remember that anytime that you're just feeling attacked. So that is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. I will see you back here for day 99, one step closer to 100. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.